in my cup. In the session, real loud, good gas, yeah, you know we about to roll it up. Bring the bottles to the session, big tab, go ahead and just live it up. Get lit one night, after that, we can go ahead.
What's going on? What's going on? It's your boy Icon E, and we're here on 95 South Podcast once again. First and foremost, I want to thank God for this opportunity to be able to come on here, because without him, this would not even be possible. You know what I'm saying? And next, I want to introduce my right-hand man, your baby mama's favorite host, you know what I mean, the one that gets it done, the all-around versatile guy, my man King Jacob the Great in the building. What's going on, fam?
Man, what's up, man? Just glad to be in the land of the living. You know my motto, another day, we wake up, we get a chance and a choice. So,
Oh, yeah,
we
no
grateful to
doubt.
be here once again, man.
No doubt. So, man, you know what it is, man. Go ahead and introduce this young man we have today, man, and so we get this interview going and, get some good information, because I know we're going to get a lot of great information that we need as people and as a community. So go ahead and introduce this man and let's get this thing going.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have, man, my brother, my friend, my homie, man. Just a good brother altogether, and he's a substantial businessman. None other than, Xavier Armfield. What's up, Zay? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me on tonight, man. I'm looking forward to kind of catching up with you all tonight, share some information, and seeing what I could, be a resource to some of the listeners out there, and then hopefully we can all grow from this and cover some good material tonight.
Right. So before we get started on who you are and your backstory and the business at hand, man, when people want to know, or when people ask you, who is Xavier Armfield, what type of answer is that? Because it just can't be just a one sentence answer.
Well, I guess it's depending on the person who's asking me. Normally the answer to that is always going to be the same, but like you said, I guess depending on the type of relationship I have with the person, kind of speak to a little bit more about how I could connect with that person, man. But I'm a husband of, I guess it'll be 10 years next month. We've been fortunate enough to have three beautiful children, have two daughters, 7 years old, and a son that is 1 year old. And like I said, me and my wife are very grateful. We are very involved with our children. We try to set the best examples as we can, and we just love family, and that's who I am, and that's what I'm all about. It's like I was telling you all earlier. My parents just left today. They just came up for the day just to visit. Came with my sister, my nieces, and we all went out to like a little farm, a little fall festival, just to kind of get outdoors and spend some time with them and enjoy the festivities and just sit down, watch some football. We got the grill out, we cooked some food, and that's me on a regular basis. But when I'm not spending time with family, I take a lot of pride in being a public servant. And the industry that I'm in is real estate. It's something that I take very seriously, and I try my best to help out as many people as I can, whether it's someone that's looking to buy a home or someone looking to sell a home. Just really trying to educate them about the entire process, and working towards helping them reach their goal. I take a lot of pride in being transparent and being honest, being hardworking, being very diligent. And because of that, I've had some success, so I enjoy it. It's something that I've always wanted to do. And I thank God for the opportunity to be able to help people.
Okay, great. So with that being said, man, what is the progression or the process of being and becoming a great realtor? Because there's so many aspects of being a great realtor, and there's so much knowledge that you have to acquire to help people understand how you're the best fit for them and their family in finding, a family home, their dream home, or
Right.
just finding something that's going to make them money over a period of time, maybe like a duplex or Airbnb or whatever you may have. So what is that process of being great? Because I would say, from knowing you, you are great at what you do.
Well, I think greatness is something that, like they say, rents due every day. you can't be great on one transaction or be great one day and then turn it off. So I think being great is a progression. It's consistency. It's not something that you may have a great transaction. One transaction may go better than the other, but what makes you great is the fact that you show up every day and you suit up and you do it over and over and over again. And I think good habits, something that you do every day is actually what makes you great. It's not you don't arrive at greatness. It's all the good things that you do along the way. So if you practice doing good things over and over and over and over, the results will be great. I believe that. And I think that goes for any industry. But for someone who's looking to get into real estate, let me just take a little step back to kind of tell you some of the things that kind of, you want to kind of prepare for. Every state has its own exam. And before you can actually sit to take the state exam or even the national exam, normally you have to take some type of class, which is going to require you to get so many hours. After you go through that class, normally the teacher will give a test at the end of that class. That's for anybody that's looking to get a real estate license. You go through this class, you pay your money, you go to the class, you learn all the material in the book, and then at the end of the class, she gives a test. She gives you a test to see whether or not you pass or fail. Those that pass, she then gives you a ticket where then you can actually sit to take the state exam. So that's how they know that you're going to be at least exposed to the material. You're going to be ready to take the material. So that would be the first step. So you go in, you take the state exam, and you also take the national exam. So every state, is going to be a little bit different because the laws are going to be specific to that state. But the national exam is going to be something that's going to be across the board for everybody. Everybody takes the same national exam. I'm licensed in North Carolina and also South Carolina, and I work with clients in both states. Also work with a lot of people that are relocating to the South Carolina, North Carolina areas as well. But again, back to just being great, I think whether it be real estate, whether it be law, whether it be education, whether it be banking, finance, whatever it is, if you're going to be really good at something, one, you got to take it serious and you got to develop a system. So what makes a realtor good is developing a system. And I'll get back to that in a second. And then you also want to find a niche, so whether or not you're going to work with first-time home buyers, or you want to work with more seasoned buyers, you want to work with sellers, you want to work with people relocating, you want to work on luxury properties. Some people want to focus on rental properties. I primarily focus on residential properties. I don't do any commercial. My firm does allow me to work with commercial properties, but I don't specifically deal with commercial properties. So I deal with buyers, sellers, investors, renters. I do some rental properties, not as much, but I do some of those sometimes. And again, what makes someone good at something is just showing up and doing it every day, having a heart for it. A lot of times, some of the work that I do for my clients, I know for sure some realtors would not do. Some of the conversations that I'm willing to have with my clients, some things that I'm willing to do for my clients, some realtors just will not do it. And it doesn't make them any less than me, in my opinion. It's just the fact that I take what I do very seriously, and I just go further than some people to complete a task. And that's something that's really important in real estate, in these days and times, because a lot of times you really are educating people on a process they have no idea about. They could be not only a first-time home buyer, they could be a first-generation home buyer, meaning that your parents never owned a house and your grandparents never owned a house. So if no one in your family ever owned a house, how do you know how to do this? If you have not talked to someone else who has done it, if you have not done all the research yourself. So I find myself in situations like that a lot. So I stay in my lane, but I'm very thorough with what I'm able to do and what I'm able to share. But I also just educate them about the process. A lot of times in terms of education, you have to prepare them to understand or know who to go to for certain answers. Like, I can talk to you about some of the different loan types that you can get, but the expert on that is going to be the loan officer. So whether you're going to choose to go to your local bank or to your local credit union, you need to go in and kind of talk to them about what loan types they offer, and then kind of see how you qualify for those particular types of loans. So I try to make sure that I build them up to not only have knowledge, but also have the resources. So when they have a question, they know the specific person to go to get that question answered. That's very important. So in a nutshell, those are some of the things that I do that have been effective, that have allowed me to have some success. But again, in order to be, really, I guess, great at something, it's just you got to be good every day. If you're good every day, that a lot of times it results in some great results.
Okay, great. So, this is a two-part question. Now, what determines the relationship that you, as a realtor, the relationship that you build with certain mortgage loan officers, and is it difficult explaining to people who's never bought a house the closing, the opening and closing costs when you're in that market to buy and purchase a house?
It's not difficult. Is it difficult? It's not difficult for me to explain because, again, like I said, I don't necessarily go into it too much in detail. But whenever I'm pre-screening, I'm speaking with someone for the first time, I may ask them a general question. Are you aware of your credit score? Okay. Most people know a range of what it is, or they may know what it is. Now, if it's too low, then we can still, regardless of what your credit score is, once I talk to you, I still refer you over to a loan officer. Because my vision is, if you're qualified and you're ready to buy right now, that's what you want to know, because you're ready to buy. And if you're not qualified and ready to buy right now, you need to know what you need to do in order to get approved, what you need in order to be qualified. And a lot of times people say, well, I'm going to work on my credit. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. All those things are great, but it's more important for you to know specifically what the loan officer is looking for in a credit score, because you may spend 2 to 3 months, 6 months working on something that's not even important to them. You may say, well, I've been working on this the last 6 months. I'm like, okay, we're not worried about this. We're worried about this, and this. You won't know what that this, and this is until you speak with someone who actually qualifies people for a loan. So, if you are ex-military, or if you've done some, spent some time in the service and you're interested in a VA loan, if you have some general questions about a VA loan, I can kind of tell you a little bit about that, the kind of, just if you have some general questions, but still, that's still something for the loan officer to ask. If someone says, well, I haven't saved as much money up, then you may want to look at, or my credit score is not as strong, then you want to maybe look at an FHA route, or they say, well, I got great credit, or I got a lot of money to put down. They may want to look at a conventional loan. So you kind of start to kind of steer them and kind of drop a couple pieces of information that may be beneficial to them based off the information that you they give you, but you still want to get them over to that loan officer. I try to build as many relationships with loan officers as I can, because I want to find out the different types of programs sometimes that the loan officers offer. But I first want the person to at least brainstorm a bank that they currently have a relationship with, or a credit union, because I feel like if they have a relationship with one of those financial institutions and it's a positive relationship, then that's probably be in their favor when going to look for a loan, versus you going to someone all new, versus you going to a bank or a credit union that you've had a relationship with for the last 10, 15 years. I say, in my personal opinion, I think that's one of the first places for you to kind of take a look. But if somebody comes to me and say, hey, I don't have a lender or a loan officer or a lender in mind, do you have someone? Based on that person's situation and what they share with me, I try to get a good feel for their personality, and then I try to match them with somebody that I think is going to be a good person for them to work with. That's how I go about doing that. But yeah, in terms of, closing costs, you can normally look at, I guess, if you just want to kind of have a number in your head, somewhere between 3 to 6% of the actual purchase amount of the home. So if you look at the actual purchase amount of the home, and you do the math of 3 to 6% of that, on average, that's how much you're going to have to pay for closing costs. Now, that doesn't include your earnest money potentially or your down payment. But in terms of closing costs, it's going to be roughly 3 to 6% of the actual purchase amount of the home. For a rule of thumb, that's a number for you to kind of keep in mind.
Back to you, Icon.
Okay, before we continue on, everybody follow us on 910 Sports and Entertainment Network, our YouTube page, and just shout out to all our partners, Village Global Network, and our 173 countries that we're involved in, our 10 radio stations, including our new radio station out of Mexico City, Fierce Radio, and T-Dub Entertainment Radio out of Mississippi, She Real Radio here in Atlanta, and our radio station out in Canada, D-Boss Radio. Also, if you want to book us for either interview or hosting or media, hit us up at 95southpodcast@gmail.com, and we go from there. And then also we have a television show, Chosen One TV, that we're involved in. We do a 15-minute segment on there. It's going to be starting soon on 5 different Fox channels: St. Louis, Mississippi, Atlanta, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Myrtle Beach. So anyway, let's get back into this thing. So I'm ex-military myself. So my thing is, I may need like certain information I really want to know. I know one time I started to talk to somebody last year. The only reason why I didn't continue with the process any further, because I was on the road a lot working, and I wanted to actually get somewhere and start kind of like looking for a house areas and first before I just decided while I was out on the road. But I know one of the things they was telling me, how, you could tell me how true or false this is.
Okay.
Not say false, but they were saying that basically I'm an independent contractor. And so in contract, it may just not work for just the military, but overall has to be an independent contractor, basically for the same contract. I guess you want to say for 2 years. And if you're like a regular employee, it only have to be a year to start off to qualify. How true is that particular?
Again, I mean, I try not to get into loan officer requirements because those things do vary. And there are different programs that are designed for different types of employees who get different types of income. For most cases, for someone who's a W-2 wage earner, in most cases, it is like 2 years tax returns. Mm-hmm. 2 years tax returns. And then it's like maybe 30 to 60 days bank statements. Those are things that they require up front. And the reason they're asking for these, and I kind of get back to your question as well, is they're wanting to determine your debt ratio. Okay. And this is important, and this is good knowledge for anybody, I guess, that's watching this, is trying to understand this. What they're wanting to see, one, they want to see some consistency in pay, and they want to get an average of your income for the 1 year or the 2 years. They also want to see in terms of your balance, how are you budgeting, and, what do you got going on in your account? What are your reserves? How much money are you keeping in your account? Some things to take a look at. But ultimately, what they want to do is actually establish a debt ratio. The debt ratio basically is the amount of money that you make per month. Then you divide the amount of money that you're spending per month, and what is that percentage? Because right now, if you're not owning a home, you have your rent, possibly a car note, and you have any type of revolving debt like credit cards or anything like that. You got your credit card payments, and then maybe potentially a loan payment that you have. So they total up all those numbers. Of course, whenever you're looking to buy a house, they deduct that rent out, and then they're going to put in a mortgage. Because basically going to determine how much money you can afford in terms of the house. That's how you determine how much house you can afford. And, normally they want your debt ratio to be below 50%, somewhere between 45 to 50%, So in order for them to determine that, they have to take the amount that you make per month. Let's just say that the amount is $5,000. And, you're spending out, let's just say $2,500 a month. So, your debt ratio is right at 50%. So you may want to get that down a little bit. So one of the things they may be working with you on if you're in a situation like that, if you're at the debt ratio cutoff or above it is, maybe you want to pay something off or something along those lines. Or say, for instance, you saw a house that you wanted and that house was $350,000 and the mortgage on that was, let's just say, $1,600. I'm just throwing numbers out. These aren't accurate numbers based off of current interest rates, but say the house was $1,600. So in order for you to get your debt ratio down, now you may need to look for a house that's $1,450. Maybe look at a house that's $1,400. It may reduce that amount just to get that debt ratio in line. So that's what they want to look at. So I don't know specifically what it is. I don't doubt whatever they were telling you was not true. Could the requirements have changed since you spoke with them last year? Possibly. But normally it is at least 1 to 2 years of any type of stated income, which would be not stated income, any type of, in terms of what you file for that particular year, whether it be your W-2s or for the self-employed persons, the 1099s, they'll need to get maybe 1, 2, 3 years. I'm not sure how many years they need of those. I'm not sure, but at least 2 years. And that would go for whether or not you're a W-2 wage earner or a 1099 employee. I would say at least 2 years. And sometimes it's probably going to be a little bit more. And for the 1099 employee, they require your whole tax return. They have to kind of go a little bit further in terms of verifying income. But I will tell you this, whether it be a W-2 wage earner, which is a traditional employee, or a 1099 entrepreneur or something like that, there are programs. There are so many programs out there for people that are looking to purchase a home. So if you do have verifiable income and you have filed your taxes and your credit score is considerably good, and I say low credit score, I mean, people don't know. You can get a house with a credit score as low as 500. We all know that's not a good credit score.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen is if your credit score is that low, you're going to have to pay more money up front. Where normally it might be, I was saying like maybe 3 to 6%. You're probably going to end up paying about 10% if your credit score is that low. You probably want to be, I guess, to actually get a quote unquote normal situation, you want to be somewhere around about 600, 620. Sometimes people go down to 580. Every program is different, but you want to be somewhere between 600, 620. That's kind of a starting point for somebody in terms of credit. You want it to be, but you want it to be at that number and not have a whole lot of delinquencies on your credit. You could have a 620 or 630, but you could still have a bunch of 30, 60-day lates, 90-day lates, and be late. If you are showing consistent late pay through your credit score, you're not going to get approved, regardless of what your credit score is. They're going to say, yeah, your credit score is 620, but I see where you didn't pay your Discover card last month. You ain't paid Citibank in 60 days and this. So basically, you're not building any type of trust here. So these are things that you want to kind of get cleared up before you even really apply for the loan. And sometimes you could just pull your credit score yourself and work on those things. That's great. Or if you do want some more strategy, or you do want to talk to somebody and find out a little bit more about not only just the credit score, but also what the closing cost potential requirements are going to be, and the down payment potentially what it's going to be, and estimated taxes and things. And those are questions that you can ask the loan officer even before you apply for the loan. Like I said, if I got somebody that comes to me to say my credit score is, about 500, I got a couple things laid, a couple medical bills, and laid on a couple credit cards. I said, well, look, this is what I want to do. Let me get all your information. I'm gonna work with you. We got some things we got to work on. We got to clear up some of this stuff. But 6 months to a year, I think we'll be ready to go if you're really committed to getting these things taken care of. I'm gonna put you in contact with somebody. They're gonna go over your entire credit report with you. They're gonna tell you specifically what you need to work on, how you can go about doing it. They'll check back with you in about 2 to 3 months. I'll follow back up with you in about 2 to 3 months. And like I said, between 6 months to a year, if you can commit to focusing on these things and taking care of them, we'll be in a position to score. We'll be in a position to actually go forward. And if you do that along the way, it also allows you to save. Hopefully go ahead and start putting some money aside and things of that nature. So when we get there, you'll know exactly what to expect and what to do. So that's my answer to that question. Again, that is definitely a loan officer question. and it's specific to the actual company that you're talking to. So, because if you're talking to company A, they say, well, Icon, we need you to have, 2 years tax returns. We need you to have this, this, and this. If you go company B, their requirements might be slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's all dependent on who you were talking to. And if you're talking to them a year ago, I promise you some things have probably changed in terms of their requirements.
Well, I was talking directly to the people that work kind of like hand in hand with the VA.
Okay, right.
So I was talking directly with those people that is kind of insiders. I'm pretty sure they probably work with some outside folks too, but the main person was like somebody that was inside, basically the kind of system of the VA, whatever. So another question I had is rent to own. So when you go to rent to own route, so basically, is that more so a lot of times for the people that have low credit, and how kind of I guess effective, or is that a better route for some people to take where they rent maybe for a year? Does that help you with building your credit over that year, or what do you recommend, or how do you see the rent to own process?
I see it as being a good option for someone who may not be ready to purchase. They do need the house, they need a space, they need the property, but they may not be at a point where they're ready to purchase. And it could be for a number of reasons, because most cases, if you're going to be even renting to own, most landlords or owners are going to require you to have some type of credit established. It's not like anybody to just come stay in their house. But the benefits of the renting to own is, and I guess it's drawn up into the contract, is after a specific amount of time, you can continue to rent, or you have the option to buy. And if you choose to exercise that option to buy, then they will allow you to use maybe some of the down payment, reserves that you've put down on the property, or maybe even a percentage of what you paid over the period of time that you've been in the property. It will allow you to use some of that towards the purchase. So say for instance, you had to put a deposit down of $2,500, and you may have had to put another month in the hole or something like that. So maybe you got $4,000 tied in the property before you go into it, and then now you're paying another $1,800, $2,000 a month. So say for instance, this property, if it had gone on market, normally it would have sold for $350,000. But because you have been a good tenant, you lived in the property, the owner may say, instead of me selling it to you for $350,000, I'm gonna sell it to you for $340,000. So I'm gonna sell it to you for $10,000 less. And this is pretty common in situations like that, but every situation is different, because the rent to own contract is a contract that's pretty much drawn up with the terms that the owner of the property wants. So I don't know what the property owner might want, or what stipulations they may put in their contract. But normally they will give you a reduced price on the market value, and they will allow you to use your deposit or funds towards down payment or upfront costs to purchase the house. So the difference between, someone who just decides, I'm gonna go buy a house today, the advantage you have is you could buy the same house that they could buy for potentially $1,000 less. And in terms of your upfront cost, down payment, earnest money, and things of that nature, that may be money that's already in your deposit that you don't have to worry about coming up with.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the beauty. And the beautiful thing about renting to own, or just renting in particular, it allows somebody to build a history of payment.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've shown, and the thing you want to do with renting to own, or when you're renting in general, there are several companies out here now you can actually make aware of the fact that you are renting, and they will actually kind of keep record of that. So when you do go purchase a house, you can say, well, I haven't owned a house, but I've been living here. I've been renting in this place for over a year, and here are the rental records.
Okay.
Here's proof that I've been paying rent on time, because that's what they want to see, consistency. If I'm going to lend this person $350,000 about his house, how am I sure that they're going to be able to make this payment every month? You say, well, I've been doing it for a year. I've been doing it for 2 years. So now you're able to get, that vote of confidence from that property owner, and also have records of those payments that you've been making, which definitely work in your favor. So I think renting to own is a good idea in certain areas, because again, like you said, some people may have a desire to purchase a house, but the timing just might not be right.
Okay,
for whatever reason. Yeah.
So real quick, it's something you just said that kind of triggered a question. You said showing rental records. So in this day and time, people do things a lot different when it comes to like making payments. So I actually paid my landlord through Cash App.
Okay.
So I cash up her my rent every month. So is that a legit right way of showing a bank like, oh well, basically, or do I need to do a different method or keep the record in at least an additional record if I'm showing a bank, okay, I'm paying this what I'm paying, and here go the record of when I pay?
Man, that's a great question. That's a great question. And I have never been asked that question before. I'm familiar with Cash App because I have Cash App myself, but I haven't gotten, and I know they do keep a log of all of the payments that are made, but just for your protection, and I guess for you to have something that you can verify. See, the thing about that is, even if you could somehow print out the statement or print out something from your Cash App which showed the activity of you making the payment every month, it's not gonna be very formal. And what I mean by that, it's not gonna have your first and last name paying to first and last name of the other person. Because it's gonna have your Cash App handle, possibly their Cash App handle, or their phone number that you're sending it to. So my personal opinion on that would be is you want to have, if at all possible, you want to kind of go old school. Even if you want to have some type of paper trail.
Yeah, because I don't think I know it's coming from my bank account, of course. So I'm not sure. I have to look to see exactly what it says on my bank account when I send it.
Right, because you send it that's the whole thing is when you're paying via Cash App, is the money sitting in Cash App or is the money sitting in your bank?
No, the money's sitting in my bank, so I have it attached to my bank account.
Right. So whenever you get ready to pay it, you pay it from Cash App, which then draws it from your bank.
Yes.
So what you would want to do, again, it's going to show the actual amount, but the beauty of having like I said, man, if I was in your situation, which would probably cost you an extra $10 a month, is is it somewhere that the person that you send them, is it something local?
Well, what you mean? My landlord is what you mean, like local? Like you mean like to them as far as, well, are they local?
Right. Yeah. Right. Yes.
They stay around in the city or in the Atlanta area.
So would you be comfortable? Would you be comfortable with getting like a certified check or money order to pay the payment?
I mean, if they willing to come pick it up, because I don't know, because that was kind of a convenience, I think, for them, because I've only seen them. Be honest with you, I've been in the house maybe a little bit over about a year, maybe, and I've only seen the person in person maybe twice.
Right.
Time I've even dealt with the person, because really the person I'm paying is not even their property; it's their cousin's property who stays in New York, and they're like their property manager, so to speak, and they go and collect money from different.
I mean, just so you would have a more of a paper trail, and again, like you said, maybe the mailing it off would be a little bit too antiquated. But the next thing, or probably the ideal thing, would be to see if they would be able to hopefully set up some type of online payment.
Okay.
Where you would actually be sending the amount directly to, because when you make it out to the property owner's name, right?
Well, I just send it.
You send it to that person.
I send it to the person who the property manager. I just send it directly to her and say it's for rent. So
right. I would this would be my approach to that. I would say, well, hey, things are going fine, but what I'm trying to do, I'm setting up a new system in terms of how I make payments. I'd like to do, if at all possible, to do something online How can we set up online payments for you to receive online payments? Is that something we can look into? Because what you're wanting to do is to have a document on record that states on this particular day, I am, your name, sending X amount of money to this person. So whenever you go to purchase a house or something in the future, you can have record showing on this date, on this date, on this date, on this date, I made payment to this particular person. Because as of right now, because now you're drunk, because you could go to your bank right now and pull out and get them to give you a, you could get a statement that's going to show, every month that you're drawing this money out, but there's not really a way to kind of track who it goes to specifically. I mean, it's going to the person, but it's going to their cousin. You know what I'm saying? So basically, you're just trying to create a paper trail that's going to be easier to verify in the future when you go to look to purchase something. And that's probably something I would look into doing if I were you, just so you can have, some files on that. Because you, like you said, you have the Cash App activity, you have the statements from your bank, but it's really gray in terms of how the money is being exchanged from what hand to what hand. It's leaving your account, but to this particular person. And that's something I would look into.
Okay. I would say, Icon and Jay, speaking online, what you could use, I would say I'll give you three of them. I would give you Zelle, I will give you Stripe, and I will give you Square. Because especially with the Stripe in the Square, they have ways you can make a receipt and send it through via email to who you're paying it to, and that right there leaves your paper trail where you can print out those receipts and you can have that in your file. So even when you file your taxes at the end of the year, you have that, and then upon purchase, you can have them in your file, and you can create your own spreadsheet where where this is what you paid year to date. You know what I mean? So, but the Square and that Stripe will definitely work for you.
And Zelle as well. I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar with all of them, but Zelle is the one that I most regularly use, and it just did not cross my mind when I was talking about it just now. So, Jacob, I appreciate you bringing it up because that is definitely a good option. Because I know in Square and the other one he's speaking about may be the same, but now who do you bank with? Is it like a well-known bank or?
Not well. I bank with Wood Forest, which is out of most of them are in Walmart's. I have to see because I'm not sure if Zelle. I'm not sure if Wood Forest deals with Zelle. I don't think they do.
Right, that's the thing you just have to check on because most of the banks have some type of relationship with one of them.
They deal with Zelle because Wood Forest is in every Walmart across the land, and it's like on this side of the earth you might have Wood Forest, on this in like all the local Carolinas and stuff, they have all South credit unions in their Walmart. So Wood Forest definitely have Zelle.
Well, Wood Forest is not one of those banks that's in everywhere. Wood Forest is really only in the South and as far as maybe Chicago. It's not on the West Coast at all. I don't think it's in Texas. So it kind of stops around maybe Mississippi, maybe area, because I've been all over the country and I know for a fact that Zelle, I mean, if you look it up too, you can look it up. It'll tell you Wood Forest is maybe in like 13 states or something like that. So it's not all the way across America for sure.
Right. Well, I guess the most important thing is just trying to find out what compatible service that they may have, or who they might have a relationship with that will be of assistance to you. And actually, that's a banking question. I mean, it's a question you're asking me, and I'm more than happy to try to answer it, which I tried the last couple minutes, and Jacob gave some valuable information. But that's a banking question. That's what I mean by knowing enough to point somebody in the direction of someone who might even be a better resource. In that particular case, the funds are at your bank. So ultimately, whether it goes Cash App, if it goes Zelle or whatever, it's going to all come from your bank. And what you would just say to your bank and say, hey, I pay my rent monthly via my Cash App that's linked to my account here. I'm trying to find a better way where I can actually make these payments for my rent so I can actually keep record of it. What do you suggest?
Yeah.
And just kind of go from there. So
I do have a USAA account that I haven't used in years. I didn't even know I still even had it. That was the crazy part. I had it for they just had me send me a statement one time, and I called them about something, and they was like, "Oh, you still have it." I think I called about insurance or something, get some insurance or something, and they're like, "Oh, you still got an account with us," and I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "I ain't used that account in like 10 years. Like what?"
Right.
So I may be able to start something up with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Either or. Just I will call both of them and ask both of them that same question and see which of them have something that sounds something like something you want to use, and just kind of go from there. That's what I would do. But you definitely want to keep record of it, because again, like you said, who knows when things kind of slow down for you, and you are at a point where you want to look into, maybe purchasing a home now or 6 months from now. It'll be good if you have some records.
Okay.
In regards to that.
I don't take up the whole interview. Go ahead, Jacob.
That's fine. That's fine. That was good questions, man.
Jacob, you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here. So, with you being a realtor, Zay, man, what do people need to know about equity in land? Because a lot of times people don't know where they go purchase land to build their home and stuff. So, what can you tell them about that?
Well, what do you need to know about equity? I guess the first thing that you need to know is what equity means. And, equity is basically the difference between, what the home is worth and how much is still owed on the mortgage. So you got to look at what the value of the house is and then how much you owe on the mortgage. The beauty of equity, man, is very powerful because it allows you to do a lot of things. And homeowners have equity. Even in this market, a lot of homeowners have equity, and a lot of people who've purchased homes in the last couple of years have a lot of equity because the values of homes have gone up. Just to kind of give you an idea, let's say, for instance, in a new construction neighborhood, okay, everybody knows what a new construction neighborhood is. That's an area where they're clearing out and they're building new houses. Typically, when you go to a new construction neighborhood, they build the homes in phases. And they may have a rhyme or reason for why they're building certain houses. But, they may have, let's say, 5 different phases, and let's say they're going to build 100 houses in this neighborhood. Each stage, they're going to build 25 or 20 houses, 5 stages, 100 houses, 20 times 5. So what you're going to look at is if you one of the first people to buy into that neighborhood, say, for instance, the houses, when they first start building them, the houses are $300,000 for this one house. This is in 2023. They start building houses. They got 5 stages in this particular neighborhood. It's going to take them maybe a year and a half, 2 years before they finish it. So they still started now in 23. They're not going to finish in 25. That same house that you bought for $300,000 in 2023, when they finish building houses in 2025, that same house may be $400,000. Let's say, be realistically, it'd be $375. A year and a half, 2 years later, because it could easily be $100,000 more. So you bought the house for $300,000 in 2023. Somebody else bought the house in 2025 for $375. So you take the $300,000 that you have over the last 2 years. You've been making mortgage payments. You've been making mortgage payments. Now, the first several years when you purchasing a house, a lot of your mortgage payment is going towards interest. Only so much is going to be going towards principal. But the way you determine what your equity is you say, for instance, you bought it for $300. 2 years from now, say you owe $297. It ain't going down much. You've been paying it, but it ain't going down much because the majority of your mortgage payment is majority of your payment is going towards interest. So the principal is only going down $3,000. But the same house is $375. So off gate, you got $78,000 worth of equity. in a year and a half, 2 years. It's very common. I know people that I've sold a house less than 2 years ago that got over $100,000 worth of equity. You know how powerful that is? And sometimes I get a little, I don't get upset, but it makes me say like, dang, because I bought my first house, I bought in 2007. Market crash in 2008. You remember all the banking, the foreclosures. So I say all that to say my value stayed. It took a long time for my value to go back up. Now, I sold that house 2 years ago. And when I sold it, I kept the house for 15 years. I sold it 2 years ago and I had a substantial amount of equity, but the majority of my equity I got like in the last 5-6 years. Depending on when you buy the house, you can really hit the jackpot, is my whole point. Like, so people bought a house 2023. Somebody bought a house between 2020 and 2021. They got a lot of equity right now. I mean, they easily have over $100,000 worth of equity. That's common. And now you say, well, what can I do with $100,000 of equity? Whatever you want. If your credit and everything is still in line, you still got a job, you still got verifiable income, you could possibly just say, well, you not necessarily want to refinance now because the rates aren't as favorable. But in a normal situation, someone could refinance if they wanted to lower their rate and do a cash out. Say you need some money to buy a car or fix the house up or to do a renovation in the house, to put down some new floors or, buy a boat, whatever you want to do. You may say, well, I got $100,000 worth of equity. Let me refinance my house and, I can get $30,000, $40,000 out cash to do whatever I want to do with it. A lot of people do it to pay off debt, which is a smart thing. If you got 2-3 credit cards, and since you bought the house, you run those credit cards up because you've been buying furniture and buying all these nice things for your house. You look and see my credit card balances are high, but I got $100,000 worth of equity in this house. You may choose to say, well, I'm going to refinance the house and I'm going to pull out enough money to consolidate this debt. So now you still have your mortgage, because you pulled out this $30,000. Now you also have a $30,000 equity line in most cases, or some type of revolving debt. Sometimes they put it on some type of like a card or something, but it's still something that's tied to your mortgage. And you may have a payment on that, But say your credit cards may have been $300-$400 a month. The payment on that may only be like $200. You know what I'm saying? Because in most cases, the rate on that is going to be less because it is tied to your house. So it's not going to be a 20% APR, 25% APR like you paid on those credit cards you paid off. You can have a smaller interest rate. So equity is just powerful, man. You can use it for a number of reasons. People use it to help the kids pay school, to pay tuition. They may pull out some money every couple of years to help pay off some tuition, or to help the child out. That whatever it is, it's your money. Or you can just let it sit. Some people choose to allow the equity to sit in the house. And just know, hey, I don't have much money in the bank, but I know I got $200,000 worth of equity. So if I ever needed to get it, I know how to go about doing to get it. The thing is, some people have equity. In some cases, they can't access the money because they may not qualify again. So that's the thing. You got to still make sure that if you're ever wanting to access it while still owning the home, that you can still qualify for the loan or for equity line to get it. Now, the other way to get the equity is, which is the most common way, is to sell. And a lot of people, you run into financial situations, and everybody goes through different things, jobs and situations in life where, your income and things may change. That's a common thing. And some people, they don't pay the mortgage, and then you run into foreclosure. And my thing is, not to say that it couldn't happen to somebody, but if you have a large amount of equity, why not just sell? Why go into foreclosure? If you got $100,000 worth of equity in the house, why are you gonna sit back and just not pay until the bank comes and wants their money? They foreclose on the property, you lose the property. Then you lose everything. You may as well just sell the property, get the cash, and try to regroup. You can always find somewhere to rent. You got $100,000. You go take out $15,000, $20,000, put the rest of it back, and now you got money to cover you until hopefully you can kind of improve your situation. You know, and then you don't destroy your credit. But if you sit back and just not pay, and they're sending you letters, and you know you haven't paid taxes, you haven't paid the mortgage, and then they got to exercise on the property and try to regroup money because they've loaned you this money. They've loaned you this $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000. You're not making any payments on it. They had to get it from somewhere, you know. So they got to do something. They can't sit back and just not let you pay. So then, you know, the foreclosure proceedings start, and you know, people looking at the property. I say before you do all that, put it on the market. If it's in good standing, go ahead and put it on the market, and you just go ahead and try to find you a place to stay, and you just regroup and try to protect your credit as much as possible, because a year from now you could be back up. But if you sit around and mess around and go bankrupt and go foreclosure, you're gonna have to sit in that for a while. And it's not so much that you can never buy anything again or you won't be able to purchase again, but you know, those things will come up in the future when you're trying to purchase, and there are some ways to avoid it. So if you do have equity, use that leverage, use that power to better your situation. What I mean by better your situation, like I was talking about, you may want to put a deck on you. You may want to put a deck outside. You may want to put in some new flooring. You may want to do some new fixtures and things in the house, things that's going to improve the house value. So in the future, if you do sell it or whatever, whatnot, you can increase the value of the house. Those are things you can do to kind of help yourself. Or again, like I said, if you're needing to help a family member out, pay tuition, if you want to need to buy something, pay off some credit cards, things of that nature, use that leverage of that equity to improve your situation. And if you ever hit hard times, my opinion is if you do have equity, sell. Sell. That's probably the best advice I can give you in regards to that. So before things get too bad and too out of hand, if you're in a position, if you already know it's something that you can handle and you don't think your financial situation is going to improve or you're going to be in a better situation, I say sooner the better, just go ahead and sell it.
Okay, cool. So I see there's a lot of new subdivisions going up and stuff like that. So you as a realtor, what's the process of you getting with the community development, with the home developer that's building a subdivision with about 70 houses? Like, what is the process for you to work with them?
Well, one, you want to actually go to the table with a realtor. So you want to find someone like myself to represent you. So the thing about having a realtor that I think some people don't realize, one, I mean, obviously we do get paid, but the buyers don't pay us. So if you're a buyer and you're looking to buy a house, you don't pay me. So actually, you're actually contracting with my company, which is my firm, for me to represent you, but technically you don't pay me. I get paid by the person who's selling the property. The seller pays me. So in this case, or in your scenario, the builder would be the person that's paying me. So basically, you're getting free representation. For lack of better words, you really are. You get free representation because I don't get paid until you qualify, you purchase the house, but you don't pay me. Even when I do get paid, I get paid by the person who's selling the property. So whether that's the builder of a new construction community like you're talking about, or the seller down the street who's selling this house, that's the person who's going to pay me, not the buyer. Okay. So you want to get somebody to represent you because there are some things that you want to kind of keep in mind that you might not know. That, not to say that the builder is going to take advantage of you, but it may be some things that they may choose not to share with you that would be beneficial to you. So you definitely want somebody that's going to represent you. But I say, one, before you even start going out to looking in the community, it all goes back to what we were talking about before. One, you need to know what you qualify for. That's one of the toughest situations I run into, is when somebody starts looking at a house and they don't know what they qualify for. Because they fall in love with a particular house. Oh, I love this house. You know, it's got this, and the ceilings and the floors and the sink and the stove in the kitchen. All those things look great to them. And that house is, let's say, $600,000 house, $600,000 house. And that person may only qualify for $250,000.
Mm.
So you done fell in love with a $600,000 house. I can't sell you that house. You won't qualify for that house. So the first thing you want to do, and that's the first thing the builder's going to ask you too, is have you been pre-approved?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that either I'm going to ask the person, or like we were talking about before, I'm going to get them in contact with someone who can get them pre-approved. So the first thing is for you to speak to a lender to find out, for them to verify your income, go over all your information, so they can determine how much of a house you qualify for. And once we get that pre-approval back, that's going to dictate what neighborhoods we're going to go to. Because that neighborhood that you said you wanted to go to that had 70 houses, it may be starting at $500,000, and you may only be approved for $350,000. So it don't need for us to go looking at a $500,000 house because you don't qualify for that. I mean, that's just what it is. So what we're going to need to do is to go find new construction communities that fall in line with your pre-approval amount. We want to sit down with them initially to actually find out what type of houses they have, how many different models they have. Because that's the thing is, when you go into it, what type of home are you looking for? Are you looking for a one-story home or a two-story home? Do you want your master bedroom to be on the first floor? Is that important to you? Do you need a bonus room? Do you need a yard? Do you need a fence? Do you need an office? So we're going to find out the floor plans that they have. And in most builders, they may have somewhere in between, say, 5 to 7 different floor plans. So we want to look at the floor. We want to have a meeting with them, look at the floor plans that they have. Also, if they have any model homes on site, we can actually tour some of the model homes they have to get a better feel of the homes, to see if it's something you can fit. And I take myself, for instance, we bought a home less than 2 years ago. And, what was important to us is obviously we needed at least 3 bedrooms. We wanted 4. We ended up getting 4, but it's all dependent on what your family size is and what the dynamic is. You got your kids' rooms. Both of them got a room. One of the rooms is like a guest room or like a office that we use it for office space, which is important to us. Some people, that may not be anything of interest to them. They may still go to work every day. They may not need to have an office, but my wife and I both primarily work from home, so we needed to have a home office. And some people, depending on age, like right now, because our kids are younger, we have them on the same floor with us. But 10 years from now, when they get older, you may want to separate that. You know what I'm saying? So if your kid's older, you may not want to be on the same floor with them. You got them almost out the house. You may not want them, that close to you anymore. But with kids being so young, we want to be able to get up at night to go check on them and stuff. But for somebody who got teenagers, they may want to be on the first floor and have their teenagers on the second floor. You understand? So as your life changes, as the dynamic changes, what you want in the house may change as well. So the house that we have right now, which I could honestly be here for the next 30 years or so, but there's a good chance at some point when they get a little older, we're going to want a different floor plan, where we can kind of spread it out a little bit, even when, like, I got twins, they share a room now, but I would say probably in the next 5 to 6 years, they probably going to want their own room, and that's something we got to look at as well. And if you got a pet, then, like I said, you may want to have a larger yard so your pet can run around in the backyard, or you may want to get a yard or a house that has a fence. Those are things you got to kind of keep in mind, or just kind of envision when you're sitting down with a client that's looking at a new construction property. And I think I may have shared this before with someone. What I talk to clients about is I try to sell a community. Yeah, it's great that you like the house. It has the bells and whistles that you like. That's great. But if you do have to drive to work, how would your commute to work be from here? If you do have to go to the doctor's office, how close is your doctor's office from here? If you do like sports and entertainment, those things that you like to do on a regular basis, how close are you to doing those things? Because those are the things that improve or add to your quality of life. So if you can find a location or community that actually checks the boxes, and you're able to get a community that has a good school, So if you have younger kids and you're really interested in being in a school district that's a great school district, you want to make sure, okay, we're in a good school district. I'm only 5-10 minutes from work. If I needed to get to my mother's house or need to get to the babysitter or to daycare, I'm only 3 to 5 miles away. Those things do matter. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be living somewhere, and if you got to drive an hour, 30 minutes, or 45 minutes to get everywhere, you're not going to be happy with that property. And I promise you, in about a year or two, you're going to be ready to move. So you want to try to check off as many of those, and even for people who have to do a lot of traveling, you want to be closer to the interstate. You don't want to have to drive so long before you get to the interstate. So you have to keep all of those things in mind when buying the property, and just find out about the property as much as you can, any type of warranties that they have, just being involved in the process as much as you can. Of course, making sure you get a good inspection, make sure you understand where certain things are in the house, and just do your best to take care of it, man. But I'm a big advocate for new construction. I like new construction. I like older houses as well, but I do like some of the architecture and some of the things that builders are doing. But to answer your question, the first thing you want to do is find out what you qualify for before you start going house shopping. You definitely want to do that. And then from there, if you have a good realtor and someone that you trust, you're probably looking at about a 6 to 8 month process. They haven't built the house already, but it's very exciting, and you get a chance to kind of see it from beginning to end, and it's rewarding. And it's a cool process.
All right, Zay, I appreciate that. I'm coming back to you.
Well, I want to ask you this before we get out of here. When it comes to like modular homes, I know modular homes have definitely improved tremendously, probably over the last 20 years. So is it any equity or any value in getting the modular homes these days? Because I know a lot of people, especially in the South, we all know South Carolina, North Carolina, even I heard even Georgia is even starting to really get heavy into the modular home, because my wife actually said something about it earlier today about possibly going that route. So what is that any value or any sense at all to go that route? Because I know a lot of people do go that route.
And then you're talking modular home, more or less, you're speaking about the, I guess, former mobile home, but now modular.
Yes.
Yeah, man, they still carry value. And it's ironic that it's interesting that you're bringing this up, because I actually sold a modular home about 2 months ago, and it sat out in Statesville, North Carolina, on about 3 acres, and it sold for about $300,000. The person had owned the home.
Was that land and home or just home?
That's land and home. Yeah,
okay.
land and home. But yeah, so the land and home, and they had purchased, I can't remember what they purchased it for, but the person had pretty much paid it off. So yeah, they do gain value. The process for qualifying for the loan was an FHA loan. It was very similar to any other loan that I would do. The only difference with this particular home, because I guess just to kind of walk somebody through this, I know we're wrapping up. So from the time that somebody goes under contract, there's a couple things that you do as a realtor within the due diligence period. And the due diligence period is normally, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks. That's for you to do all of your due diligence. So the very first thing you want to do after you go on a contract is get an inspector out there to inspect the property from top to bottom, to let you know everything that's going on with the property. Because if there's anything that needs to be negotiated in regards to the home, you need to know within that period of time. You know what I'm saying? So you want to get the inspector out there, and then after that, you want to get the appraiser out there to get the home appraised. Because if the home doesn't appraise for the amount that you offered, the deal's not going to go through. Say for instance, the person had the house on the market for $300,000, you offered $300,000. You get the inspection done, it comes back, we're going to review over that. But then the appraisal comes out, and they appraise it for $280,000. Either you got to find $20,000 out of your pocket to put with that $280,000, because the bank's only going to pay $280. It appraised for $280. The bank's going to give you $280. That's it. So that $20,000, either you got to come out of pocket or you're going to have to find a way to negotiate with that seller back down to $280, which not too many people going to come out $20,000. Okay. So we got in this particular case, we got the inspection done. There was a couple things that needed to be fixed on the house. The seller chose she didn't want to fix anything. Now, in most cases, the sellers will fix something. And if they won't fix everything that you request, they may say, well, I'll give you, and it's something we didn't talk about earlier, because people are always like, well, I don't know how I'm going to come up with this closing cost money and, all these closing. Sometimes, it's not all the time, but in this particular market, sellers are willing to give money towards closing costs. So in some cases, sellers will. In this particular case, seller didn't want to do anything. She's like, okay. So we got the appraisal back. The appraisal came back good. But the thing that I found out about this one is, in addition to the inspection and the normal appraisal, with modular homes, they also require a structural engineering report, which is a completely different report, which I didn't know anything about, because I haven't done many sales with modular homes. So it was an eye-opening thing to me. So you got a completely different engineer that has to come in there. And if there's anything wrong with the house, in this particular case, they had some type of deck that did not meet HUD guidelines. So they actually had to rebuild that deck to meet the HUD guidelines just in order to pass the lender's stipulations. So before the lender would fund the loan, they had to go back and rebuild that entire deck based off of the structural engineering report that came back from the structural engineer. So it wasn't anything actually wrong with the actual modular home itself. It was a deck that was attached to the home that was not built under code, so to say. And it had to be brought up to code before the home could, pass the guidelines for lending. So again, and that was for an older modular home. So if you're buying one that's newer, you probably wouldn't have to be concerned with that as much. But I guess just in terms of the funding, it's nothing really different than the typical residential single-family dwelling home in terms of loan process, in terms of what type of loan they go by, and the process. Nothing else was different. The only thing that was different in that particular process was the structural engineering report on that particular property. That's the only thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go. You saying something, Jacob?
Nah, I just said, man, boy, you are a wealth of knowledge. And man, I appreciate it, man. I really appreciate it, man. So
you're welcome,
so
man.
I'm gonna just say this before you get off, man. Me and you, Icon, gonna tell him and talk about doing some seminars and some workshops on this, because it's a lot of us, Black and brown people,
Right,
that don't really know how this process works. And I feel once we learn and understand that there's so much value in owning a home, buying a home, and selling a home. So I think that we would really understand more that the knowledge that a great realtor has and how they can set you up for life, because the equity can set you up for life.
Well, I'll say this. I'll end on this note, and I'll try to make this story really quick. Like I said, I bought my house, and when I get a chance one day, I'll tell you the story about the purchase of my first house, because it is a very unique and interesting story. But I'll tell you this. I had a client that I talked to I've been knowing her for a very long time. And, whenever we first start looking at houses, she said, I just don't know if I want to move to this area because my kids go to school over here. And, I got kind of comfortable over here, which I understood. But, every couple months I follow back up with her to kind of talk to her about buying a house. And just to kind of put things in perspective, I started talking to her back in like maybe 2019. The same house that one house she was really looking at, she was going to buy. That house was like maybe, say, $220,000. That same house now is worth almost $400,000. So she what I mean by that, when you talk about equity and what she meant, she would have qualified for that loan for $220,000. The house is basically $400,000 now, which is $180,000 more, which is basically $200,000. She could have almost $200,000 worth of equity in the bank. If she had bought that house for $220,000, she could at least have about $200,000 in the bank. Because we're not even talking about how much the principal would have gone down in the last 3-4 years. The $220,000 would probably be like maybe $210,000, $205,000 now. That's $15,000 plus $180,000 now because the house is worth $400,000. So now she's still staying in the same place that she was 3 years later because she didn't want to make that decision. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't tell you what's going to be best for your kids, but I do know you can do a lot more with them for them with $200,000 than not having it. You know what I'm saying? So I say all that to say, and sometimes people may look at a house that they do qualify now and say, I don't really want that house. You can't look at it like that. Because when you get in the game, it's just when you get in the game. Not getting in the game is bad. You want to get in the game at some point. Because like I say, when I bought my house in 2007, you know, it was a townhouse. It was in a good area. I liked the area. If I could have bought more, if I could afford it more, I probably would have bought more. But I bought as much as I could with my money. And I think it was a great purchase. But what it allowed me to do 15 years later is when I got ready to buy something, now I can put a substantial amount of money down on something. So even if the amount is a big number and that number looks a little scary, I'm like, yeah, do I really want to buy something that much? I felt a little bit more comfortable because I got some equity here that I can put down on it to knock that number down. So when I bought this house, so basically you're using your purchase, your first purchase will serve as a step on a ladder. And if you're trying to get to a certain point, if you want the $1 million house, some people may want that. Your first house may not be $1 million house. That's okay. But if you stick to it, you can get that house because once you buy that house for $300,000 and you sell it for $5 million, you take that $2 million, maybe you can put it down on something to buy something that's $700,000. You can get there, but you have to have those stepping stones, and it's a process, man. It's just a process. So you got to get in the game, and that's why I try to tell people. Because if you had bought that house at $220,000, now you got a house that's worth $400,000. If you wanted to sell it, again, you may be able to put a couple $100,000 away for retirement now because you got them out the house now. So now you got them out the house, and you never bought the house, and the house that you could have bought 3 years ago, you can't afford it. Because now it's worth $400,000. But you could have bought it when it was $220,000. But you didn't buy it because you wanted to get the kids to school to understand. But now they out the house, and now you in the house by yourself. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You could have bought that house for $200,000. It's worth $400,000 now. And if you wanted to buy something smaller, you would have had enough money to pretty much pay cash for it. You know? So that's kind of what we got to start looking at as a people if we're not that. Because I think because of television shows, because of Instagram and these movies and everything that people watch, they see these houses and they see all these extravagant things. But you got to realize that there's a process to get there. And if you never start the process, you don't just arrive there, you know. And you can have those things, you can have nice things, but trust me, it's a process, man. And it's a lot of learning that comes along the way, just in the pride of home ownership. You can't teach that. You got to live that, you know. And as you stay in a home and you learn to take care of the home and the home maintenance and learn about taxes, and which we didn't get into that much tonight. But when you learn those things, when you do get to a point to own the home, you'll be able to handle it better, and you'll be able to understand those things and not lose the house. The goal is to get it and not lose it. If you don't understand those things, you'll lose it. You know, so like you said, definitely a lot of topics that we can cover at another time that I think will be beneficial. If you happen to get any type of questions from listeners and people that are watching or listening, don't hesitate to send those things to me. I love to answer any questions that you might have, because again, I know there's a number of topics, a number of things that come up, and some of the best conversations about real estate come from individual situations, depending on what the person is talking about, what they need. because some people, I'm pretty sure there's a lot that people could gather from this situation, but if I need to speak to someone else a little bit more directly, I'm open to doing that as well, man. So again, we just want to be a resource in any way that we can. I'm here in Clover, Lake Wiley, South Carolina. I'm licensed in North Carolina and also South Carolina, just willing to help any and all people that I can, whether it be buyers, sellers, or investors. Man, I try my best to help people and be honest and work hard for my clients. So again, if anybody is looking for a realtor or needs some assistance, don't hesitate to get in contact with me, man. But I really appreciate your time. Icon E, is always good to connect with you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Jacob, likewise, it's always good to connect with you, man. I really appreciate you all having me on tonight.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We thank you for coming on.
Well, you can definitely drop your whatever contact you have on here that you want to give before we get out of here too.
Okay, for sure. I'll do that.
Yeah. I mean, you can go ahead and let us know what it is. Like,
okay. Well, if you're trying to find me on Instagram, I'm at Xavier Armfield. I mean, Instagram, you can find me there. Same thing on Facebook at Xavier Armfield. And if you're wanting to get in contact with me, phone number 704 area code 704-451-6901. 704-451-6901. And again, thanks for your time.
I appreciate you, brother. You have a blessed rest of your weekend and enjoy it. And, we'll get back with you because I definitely had a couple more questions myself, but we kind of run out of time. And I understand another few more minutes because I was going to ask you. Well, I'll ask you later because it was something else I was going to ask you to kind of slip my mind throughout the time we were talking because there was so much information that I ended up forgetting. I was going to say the question just now, but I slipped my mind. I know I'm going to remember when we jump off.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, man, I'm open to that, man. If you got questions anytime, you my guy, man. So don't hesitate to reach out to me. Anything I can do to help, man, I'm willing to do it.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Y'all have a good night.
All right, man. I'll take care. Thank you.